All right. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Ladies Lounge After Dark with Wonder Low. I'm your host, Wonder Low. This is I think I've gotten about 50, almost 60 videos so far now on the website. So I appreciate you all tuning in each Tuesday. You used to tune in every Tuesday at 3 p.m. to listen to me on the radio. Now you tune in every Tuesday to hear the show online on Facebook, and I appreciate that. We're also on YouTube. So if you have a chance and you're out there looking for something to watch, please go to our YouTube station, which is the same thing as our Facebook page. And it's the Ladies Lounge After Dark for Wonderlow, or the Ladies Lounge for Wonderlow, and tune in and watch us on YouTube also. We appreciate your support every week. We appreciate you liking our posts, sharing the posts, and just
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Ladies Lounge for Wonderlow.
Wait a minute. Why am I talking twice? I just heard. Like, wait, what is that? I must have. I think my other speaker must be on. So thank you all, like I said, for tuning in tonight. We have a really good show for you tonight. And this is one of those shows that I want to do because during the time we're dealing with right now, we're still in the midst of a pandemic. We're still in the midst of being quarantined and being inside. But we're also getting ready to make decisions on whether or not we want to send our kids back to school, or are we going to do homeschooling for a lot of children. So we want to make sure that we can give you some information as a parent, as grandparents, or guardians, or whomever you may be. If you have children this year that you're worried about either going back to elementary school or high school or middle school or even college, here's some tips and some information and some resources that you can probably use. We have an outstanding panel of guests tonight. So let me first introduce them as the outstanding ladies of the National Sorority of Phi. Let me make sure I say it right. National Sorority of Phi Delta Kappa Inc., the Gamma Nu chapter.
Yes.
Okay, do y'all have fun this out.
Yay!
Thank you all so much for being my guest tonight. Not going to hold up on a whole lot of introduction tonight because I want to make sure we give as much time to the topic as we possibly can. And I'm going to introduce you one by one. But after I do that, I want you all to go back through and kind of give people a little bit more information about yourself. What do you teach? What's your specialty? What you bring to the table? What your involvement is with your sorority. So my first guest, and I have to let her go first because she was the one that contacted me first, or I talked to first, and that's Dr. Carla Carter. Now, Dr. Carter is the Arkansas local president of NSPDK, a faculty development chair. The Philander Smith College and national representative of NSPDK. Thank you for being here, Dr. Carter.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. My next guest is Dr. Nedra Allen. And Nedra is the vice president of the local chapter and will speak on higher education. So thank you, Dr. Nedra, for being here. Let me make sure that I say that. She is a professor at the Philander Smith College. Did I say it right?
Yes, indeed.
And then we have Ms. Brenda Robinson. Ms. Robinson is a board member of the Arkansas Education Association, a reading specialist, and a chair of commission on civil rights and education. Amen. Thank you for being here, Ms. Robinson.
Thank you.
And then we have Ms. China Nellen. She's a future teacher advisor, adjunct professor. And now tell me what PSC is. Is that Pulaski Smith College?
Yes, Philander Smith College.
Yes. Girl, I said Pulaski Smith. And I said it right. The Philander Smith College. And it has an elementary school age child who will be doing distance learning from home. So thank you all for being here tonight. I so appreciate you all. We do have one guest. I'm going to give her honorary mention because she was the one who actually got me to Dr. Carter, and that's my friend Chandra Davis. So I appreciate her being able to get me a contact with you all to have you all come on the show tonight to talk about this. I'm just going to preference our conversation with that. Some of these will be our opinions on different stuff. So I don't want anybody running back saying that they said we got to do it this way or this how it is. Some of this stuff is going to be our opinion, but the professional part of it is going to be the information that they give the parents to help them during this time of education in their kids' life. So tonight's show topic is educate our kids during the pandemic. And what I want to do is go ahead now and give each of you a chance to kind of tell some extra information about yourself. And so we get to know you so we can listen to the show and get some good information. So anybody who wants to go first can.
Well, first, I'd like to go, if I can, because I'd like to talk about first who we are. And we are the National Sorority of Phi Delta Kappa Incorporated, and we are the only chapter in Arkansas, in the whole state of Arkansas. We are primarily an organization, a sorority of women educators in the field of education, and we have 107 chapters nationally with over 5,000 members. And we are here, we represent mostly women of color and educators of color, particularly, who also, and then those who are also members who are not of color, also have an interest in teaching Black and brown children. And so what we do is we have been in existence for going on 98 years, nationally, 1923. And we had some young women who were actually 16, 17, and 18 years old, who were in the field of education, who thought they needed to begin to organize Black women teachers around the country. As we began to address cultural relevancy, even back then in 1923. Then Gamma Nu started in 1968. So we are going on 51 years. And so many of the teachers that have taught many of our relevant teachers today actually came through the National Sorority of Phi Delta Kappa. So I just wanted to give you a little historical background about who we are and what we do. Now that we are here in Arkansas, we found that we've been able to work, if you see our platform today, this is just a small group of the 32 fierce women that belong to our chapter. Representing pre-K all the way through college, all the way through administration on all different levels, working to see what we can do around issues within education and how we can support teachers, and particularly teachers that teach Black and brown children. And so we are unapologetic about that. And we want to make sure that everybody knows that we exist. And so one of the things that happened during this pandemic is that it actually gave a rise in 2020, if you would say, of the very many, what's the word I'm looking for? You know,
different platforms.
Yeah, the different platforms, but also the discrepancies and inequities. I'm sorry, I was looking for the word inequities. The inequities within the system itself in terms of how we approach distance learning in the first place. And what were some of the systemic and economic issues around the educational issues? And then if you add with that COVID-19 being the most impactful disease and serious trauma issue within the Black and brown community in terms of impacting, and how teachers also had to deal with it while also being family, while also being wives, daughters, sisters, mothers, and all of that all at one time, and still having to navigate that. So with that, I'll just open it up. But that is one of the things that we began to tackle immediately when the pandemic hit, is how are our particular teachers in Little Rock and in Arkansas State dealing with this issue of the pandemic, and how are they navigating around the systemic inequities that happen with you have to navigate all of those intersections of who you are.
All right. Who wants to go next?
I will. So I'm Dr. Nedra Allen. I am a member of NSPDK. I've been a member now for maybe 5 years. And it's really a wonderful organization to be a part of. I love the connection that we have with my sister teachers, and working on the different things that plague the Black community. Just as a parent of a college student and also as a professor. It just seems that things with this pandemic has really exposed the digital divide, because I know that as a parent, my son and I were sharing a laptop when we first ended up going through the this social distancing and all those things in March. And it was to the point where I had to break up my time. He had to use the computer, then I had to use the computer, and I said, "This is not working." So I had to go out and purchase a computer just so he can have access to a computer so he can complete his work. So I can also, still continue to teach my students as well. But the Lord blessed me. I was able to afford to purchase a computer. But what about those families that, are unable to purchase computers? So that's just one thing that I would like to speak on as we go on through our conversation.
All right. Ladies?
I'll go next. I'm Brenda Robinson. I am a teacher in the Pulaski County School District. I've been teaching for 24 years. I have a degree in elementary ed, and I have a master's degree in reading. And I'm alumni of Philander Smith College. And so I have a wide gamut of what I've done within the elementary schools. And this year I'll be reading interventionist in one of our high schools. And just being a part of the National Sorority of Phi Delta Kappa has truly been a blessing with sisterhood. Again, we're looking at, what's happening in our Black and Brown communities. I'm also the epistolist of Gamma Nu, and also the chair of the Civil Rights Commission. And we just really want to focus on inequities within our schools or in our Black and Brown communities. Make sure that the laws that the legislators are coming with, in the state of Arkansas, that they're right for our students. We know that our Black and Brown students are the most vulnerable, and our families are the most vulnerable. So we have to do everything we do to ensure that that they're being taught and meet them where they are. We have to make sure we have to meet them where they are. And so I'm glad to be here on tonight and to talk about educating our kids during the pandemic.
All right. Thank you, ma'am.
Greetings. Sorry. Okay. Greetings. My name is China Nellen, and I am also a member of NSPDK. On NSPDK, I serve as the advisor for KOT, which is our college age group, and I also assist with our Zenos, which are our 9th to 12th grade girls. I also am an adjunct professor at Philander Smith College. I have a master's in Pan-African Studies focusing on film, literature, and media, and I also have a master's in Education and Information Technology focusing on cultural relevance. I do teach online classes at Philander, and then
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
I think you froze there for a second.
You froze, China.
It'll fix itself in just a second.
There we are.
Okay, she's restarted. But thank you, ladies. I appreciate you being here tonight. Like I said before, wanted to do this show so that we could, I know that we're not going to ease every parent's fears and anxieties about this school year, because it is just way bigger than that. But I wanted to at least have a forum or a platform for people to come, for you all to come as professional educators and give us some tips on, and at least share resources so that parents don't feel as apprehensive about things, and that they can kind of see that you all address them in a certain way. Oh, we lost her for a second. She'll probably hop back on. But so that you all can kind of at least give them a little bit of leeway or some kind of information that'll help people in making their decisions. I want to go back and I'm going to read just what you all are going to cover, and then we can start the discussion, or we can start by topic if you want to. You all tell me which way you want to go. Now, Dr. Carter was going to speak to resources and tools that teachers, parents, and students can use for distance learning, hybrid learning. I definitely want you to talk about the hybrid learning, and culturally relevant supplements and resources. Dr. Nedra is going to speak about higher education, as well as having a college-age child who will not be going back to school for in-person learning in the fall. Ms. Brenda is going to talk about. Are you going to? I want you to focus, really talk about the part that you play as the chair of commission on civil rights and education, because I think that equality in education is a huge factor. And what you just brought up in your intro is going to be a big topic for us. And then when Ms. China comes back, then she'll talk about having an elementary school age child who will be doing distance learning from home. So there she is. She is back. Let me get her back in. As soon as I find out where there it is. Uh-oh. All right. Thank you for coming back, lady.
Sorry.
Okay. It happens. It happens. We're still messing with technology that some man put together. So, it break every now and again. I was just saying what everybody was going to talk about, and I just mentioned yours last. You'll be talking about having an elementary school age child who's not going back to school, but who will be doing distance learning from home. So, let's start off with, I kind of want to say resources and stuff to the end. But Dr. Carter, I tell you what, let's start off with talking about the different types of learning, because I want to talk more about hybrid learning. If you can just talk about that for a second.
So across the country, we've seen that the reentry and the reopening of schools has asked each district in each city in each state to come up with options for students and their parents. Mm-hmm. And what we've seen trending are three types of ways in which students and parents can go back to school. One is completely through distance learning, which is to then a virtual situation where they meet by Zoom or anything, or Google Hangout or things like that. And that could be asynchronous or synchronous. And asynchronous is that the teacher can then pre-record lessons for students and upload them, and the students can access them at their own pace, which is a really good thing, because then they can take their time. There's no time limits or things like that. There's just a deadline of when they have to have them. Synchronous is when they actually meet, quote unquote, face to face through a particular virtual platform. And again, that would be Zoom or Google Hangouts at a particular time, where the teacher is actually conducting instruction and lectures. And then through that, they can get their homework and all of those things that they would normally have. The other one is kind of a hybrid. And that is what a lot of districts are kind of playing with. And I think it's important to understand that schools that receive COVID-19 funding, the funding was specifically targeted for schools to go back, and that they could not get that funding if they cannot use that funding in any other. It's very limited on the line items that they use. And so they cannot use it for general funds. They can only use it to enhance their schools to provide instruction during this pandemic. And what that means is that so hybrid is those options of a student can attend school different times, different time frames, and then the other part would be virtual. So I might go to school on Monday and Wednesday, and I might have school virtually Tuesday and Thursday, and then I have maybe a face-to-face via Zoom on a synchronous class on Friday.
Okay.
The other part of hybrid is also reduced class size. So that what will happen is you would have like an A-B schedule. So those in high school are very familiar with that, which is I go to school on Monday and Wednesday, and the other group goes on Tuesday and Thursday. Mm-hmm. Now, what that doesn't do what it does do is causes the teacher to have to teach twice the same subject. If they do not have what they call the OWL, and the OWL, that is the capability to teach half of your class and have it live streamed to the other half that's staying home that day. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect. Yeah.
Yes. And so those are the kinds of instructional tools that many of our schools do not have the capability of. So when they talk about hybrid for us and our particular schools, you're really talking about being able to have funding that allows for reduced class size, live streaming simultaneously or screencasting simultaneously to those who don't have to come that day, so that you're not teaching the same subject twice at two different times when the next group comes in, and everybody stays on board. So those are different ways in which hybrid can happen. It can happen where all the students come on a particular day, and then they have virtual classes on the other days, or half classes come on one day and the other half classes come on the other day. Then you have just complete face-to-face, where you are supposed to, those that have the largest amount of COVID-19 funding, they are to put into practice the best practices of social distancing within the classroom. That is 6 feet apart, sanitation stations, PPP masks for both teachers and students, plexiglass in between lectures, expanded times in which or designated staircases to go up and down versus passing in the hallway, ways to not congregate within the bathrooms during the passing, bell passing times, as well as using other properties on the campus or the school space, such as the gym, to expand to have 6 feet desks apart. Now, the problem with that is that on the elementary school level, many of the desks are connected or they're in the round. Okay, because it calls for community, right? And so how do you social distance in a classroom that doesn't have the tables and the equipment to social distance? So those are the 3 ways in which now people are looking at. And now you're seeing, and then there's a 4th one, which is the big bang and the big boom that is happening even in our community, and I'm glad to see it, and that's homeschooling.
Okay.
And homeschooling, you have the Black Homeschoolers Network, where they are actually hiring certified teachers to teach their students. They're getting together in neighborhoods to form cohorts, similar to how they did in freedom schools in the 60s, where they would hire 3 or 4 of the neighborhood teachers and all the neighbors in that community would come together, and the students would meet, and they would have certified teachers teaching them, but they would be teaching their own.
Wow.
And we're seeing this happen in the suburbs on a huge trend with people that don't look like us.
Okay.
They are not sending their kids back unless they get a voucher for charters. And when they aren't eligible for the charter vouchers or whatever, they are forming their own cohort neighborhood schools.
Wow.
And homeschooling now.
Yeah, see, I can see that being a huge help to parents here, because like we were talking before the show, if you're a single parent and you have to work, your child still has to get an education. And if there was a neighborhood school or a teacher in that neighborhood who could teach a group of kids during the daytime and treat it exactly like you would school, that would help out so many parents. So you said the name of that network is the Black Homeschoolers Network?
Yes.
Okay, we're gonna make sure that we post that later on. If you know a website or the link to that website or just the name of it, I'll post that later on. I will. That information.
But those are the 4 choices now that we're finding that our families have to make a decision around.
Yeah, and I think for the most part, if you are able to work a schedule to where maybe one parent works in the evenings and one parent works during the day, for some people, that's going to have to be the situation. That's how my daughter-in-law and my son are going to do it. You know, one works in the evening, one works in the morning. So they're having to, you know, make sure now that they create a school at home for their kids, because I've not been in one elementary school classroom where there were desks in the last couple of years. And I have 4 grandkids that'll be in school this year, and everybody sits at a table. And normally it's at least 5 of them to a table. And those classrooms are smashed together, and they barely have enough room to walk between those tables. So I'm like, how in the world would you do 6 feet in that room? There's nowhere to put them. And unless you're going to go to all the schools and order all these brand new desks, which you know as well as I do, that cost is ridiculous, then there's no way to safely space those kids out in the classroom. And then it's the fact that they are kids. Kids congregate and talk and play and touch and cough and sneeze and shake hands and high five and do everything. So I don't see you being able to keep some 3rd graders apart. To me, that's just going to be, that'll be really difficult to do that. Ms. China, chime in there, because you have an elementary age child that's going to be homeschooled, and kind of talk about why you made that decision.
Well, this year in March, when the pandemic happened and we had to go home with our children, I was fine with that because, as I said before, I was already teaching an online class. So it was a pretty smooth transition for me with my classes at Philander. But it was not a smooth transition for my daughter, right? So my daughter is very tech savvy because I always give her apps and things of that nature. I create classes for her on Google Classroom just because that's what I do. But her teacher was not informed. Her teacher was maybe in her mid to late 60s, and she just was not technologically savvy. So we were giving a platform in Little Rock School District, which I'm pretty sure that they did not consult the teachers with. They just got a new platform, and they were not able to use it properly. So they're technically, you were supposed to have a different tab for each subject. They put everything under one tab for every, and you literally had to scroll through. I couldn't find assignments. I couldn't find work. It was very frustrating and discombobulating for me, and I do technology. So I can't imagine what it would have been like for other people. So my daughter has her own laptop. She has a mini laptop. I have a desktop computer, and I have my own laptop because, like I said, technology is my thing. Sometimes I need 3 screens at one time. So, but with me being prepared like that, I still have concerns about internet usage. If my data is not high enough, if I'm not paying for enough data, if I'm on a plan, you know what I'm saying? If you have 3 computers going on at one time, let's say you have 3 children on the home, and then you have somebody working from home, then your internet is acting janky. You know, you can't do live streaming like we're doing now. So I think a lot of times they're not thinking about all of the different parameters that our children need. So my main reason for her to go to public school was for social interaction, right? I need my daughter to know how to engage with people. And when we come on the computer and it was time for the kids to become social, it was difficult for her teacher to hear my daughter when she was talking. Sometimes she would ask her for an answer. She would get the correct answer. She told her she got it wrong. You know what I'm saying? So just miscommunication. Also, on top of that, it's very important that they understand that if you're going to have your student on the computer, it's not like you can just give them the computer and tell them to go. No, you have to sit there with them. If they're in the 1st or 2nd grade or kindergarten, you have to sit at the computer with them, look at the assignments, click on. It's a full-time engaging job. So what I have decided, I went ahead because we had a deadline in Little Rock School District to sign up our students for homeschool. Like if I just want to homeschooler myself and I don't want to deal with the Little Rock School District at all, we got a deadline for that. And then we have another deadline, which is the 8th, if I want to have the option of virtual, right? So if I don't sign her up by the 8th for her to be online completely virtual, then they automatically put her in public school. And then I have to be in public school physically for the first 9 weeks. And then after that point, I can change. So what we've decided to do is we've decided to go ahead and sign up for the virtual. But in the back of my mind, I already know that 9 times out of 10, I'm probably going to end up homeschooling my daughter and just pulling her out completely because I don't feel that the teachers have been given the opportunity to have training so they even have the ability to teach and to engage my daughter in a way that she can understand and communicate with them. Because She was not engaged at all last semester from March until the end of the year. There was no engagement. I was not able to submit homework. It was just very discombobulating. And then the teachers didn't have answers because that's not what they do. So we will most likely be homeschooling with something similar to the Black Homeschool Network. But we are going to try the virtual option first to see if it's feasible.
I totally understand that. Now, as a grandparent, and I told my son, I said, and look, I have 2 degrees. I have a master's degree. I'm a health educator, not a education educator. I was trying to help a kindergartner and a first grader. I got confused because all this stuff is, like you said, it was on one screen. You had to keep scrolling through. You couldn't tell what assignments were done, which one they need to be done. They're not consistent.
Right.
They jump around a lot.
Mm-hmm.
There was a class in my first grader's list of things to do that he doesn't even take at school.
Right.
And it was for foreign language. And the lady was talking, and I'm going, sweetie, do you take this class? She said, Faith, I don't know what she's saying. I said, well, do you have this class when you get in school? He was like, no. So there were classes that he doesn't even take added to his curriculum. And just trying to work through that with a first grader and a kindergarten, and I have a master's degree and I couldn't figure it out.
Exactly.
Now, the other side to that, what you were saying is we also have to consider the fact that, we're looking at Little Rock and looking at North Little Rock and looking at the larger areas in the state where internet service is higher. But Arkansas as a whole has an issue with internet connection and broadband, particularly in the rural parts of the state. Yes. So think about the kids that may be in, and I'm from Southeast Arkansas, so that's always my reference point. But think about the kids that may live, and y'all ain't gonna know none of these places they live outside of Tiller. That might live out in the country part of Dumas.
Fordyce.
Yeah, Arkansas, England.
You know what I'm saying? In those areas. Yeah. Or somewhere out close to West Helena in that big gap between West Helena and Memphis. Mm-hmm. What happens to those kids when you say close to school, everybody's got homeschool, or you give them the option to use internet when there's no broadband service in those areas? So those kids are still put at a disadvantage. The parents are put at a huge disadvantage because that's one more bill. And I do like the fact that you brought up knowing whether or not you even have enough data. So what if you're in those areas, but the connection is really slow? People can't communicate back and forth because every so many minutes you freezing up and you get disconnected or whatever the case is. So go ahead. Mm-hmm.
I was going to say also, like many students so if your child is on free or reduced lunch, they do have programs where you can get internet, but you only get like a 5 bandwidth. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. So they give you the lowest amount possible. And then when they're offering us these free laptops and they free internet through Comcast, and then it's the lowest internet that you can get possible. So it's not going to be strong enough to support if you have more than one child in your house. So literally people in Little Rock and outside of, and in the rural areas, they're going to be facing the same problem because the internet service that they're providing to us is not feasible for what they're asking our students to do.
Yeah. So
I can't piggyback on that because just when we transitioned as a professor, it was difficult for our students because a lot of our students, we take for granted, well, they could just use their phones. You can't write an essay with your cell phone. You can't, do reports or do a spreadsheet on your cell phone. So, we kind of took technology for granted, and we set expectations on our students that they really couldn't meet. Because think about it, if you have a parent that has to decide whether or not they're going to put food on the table, because now they have another mouth to feed, because in my case, I was used to my son being at school. So now he came home, and then I had to figure out, okay, well, do I want to make sure that I have groceries, or do I want to pay a bill? Mm-hmm. Do I want to make sure that I have the highest level of AT&T, or can I bring it down a notch? Because I can't afford it.
Yeah.
I mean, people are making serious decisions, and it's only going to get worse. And I feel that between March and July, we've had ample time to put a plan in place that would be helpful for these students. But what are we welcoming them to? What are we bringing them back to? That's what I want.
So it's going to be difficult whether you're in elementary school, high school, whatever it is, because like you said, now parents have to also make that additional decision about spending more money to get internet. And like you said, you can afford to buy another laptop or provide the kids with a computer. There are going to be some kids that's just going to be passed by. They're not going to be able to get those things. And with COVID going on and quarantining going on and us not being able to go to different places, even trying to go to the library during the daytime, maybe and use their computers, and those are timed. So it's such a hindrance to try to get people to go. You can't go complete virtual. You're gonna have to do like Dr. Carter said. There has to be a hybrid system. Now if I had kids, and my thing would be I like the half and half. Now I don't want them to go to school at all, but I like the fact that if kids do have to go, that you can do a live stream from a classroom, and hopefully you can provide laptops to those children that have to stay at home and do class that way. So that way they're all learning at the same time. But we also know that that's not feasible either, because some kids are not going to have laptops. Some kids are not going to have internet service. It's just not going to happen. So what happens to those kids for this school year? Are they just going to get left behind? Is there a way for them to be able to do something? And maybe, like you said earlier about the Black Homeschoolers Network, maybe that's something that we could look at doing in the communities. Go ahead and try to see if there are parents and teachers that want to get those things set up, because something has to happen for all of the kids to be educated. Because the way I'm seeing it and the way things look that they're falling out now, you're going to have a whole portion of kids that are just not going to get it because they can't afford to, and there's not going to be a way for them to. And again, that's putting the parents in a strain, because if the decision is to go to work so I can pay bills, to buy the groceries, to take care of the house, to take care of everything else, I got to have my child somewhere. Remember, I was joking earlier about us talking about schools, daycare, and school. But the kids have to go somewhere, and they have to get their education some kind of way. Ms. Brenda, talk a little bit about, I guess some of this would lead into the civil rights and education also, about the equality, because this is what it's about.
Yeah, I think everything that everyone has spoken about, ties into that. So I'm a very active member with the Arkansas Education Association and with the National Education Association. And there are times when I'm on Capitol Hill and I am talking to our congressman about this very thing, about the digital divide, about the broadband, how more money needs to come from the federal government to help in our most vulnerable communities. So with there's the CARES Act that the Congress passed. Arkansas received $129 million in the CARES Act that went to education. So school districts were able to apply for some of this CARES Act, for the PPE, protective coverings, personal protective equipment. I'll make sure I get that word right. And things that, we would need in order to reopen schools, with the reopening of our schools. But again, when we talk about the broadband and the digital divide, so I was listening as China was talking about her daughter's experience. Well, I taught 5th grade last year. So yes, when we ended in March, we were in a new world. Everybody was in a new world. And not only was it challenging for parents and students, it was also challenging to me as an educator, because we had never been on the virtual platform. I knew how to do Google Classroom and, Zoom and Google Meetings. I understood all of that, but just really honing in on the curriculum and making sure that children were able to learn. Not all districts have computers or Chromebooks for their students. My district did, 3rd grade and up, but 2nd grade and lower didn't. So it was cumbersome to go through that. And we know that everyone was just pulling their hair out and, it wasn't easy. So again, I think we've learned from that experience, but again, reaching out to our most vulnerable even virtually. I mean, with the broadband, in Pulaski County, there's still areas, even in Little Rock, that you can't get connected. So again, when you're asking, how do we educate our children during this pandemic? I think it takes all of us. It takes all of us together. We can only do, what we can, and giving our parents the options to help in their kids' education is very fluid. Be it virtually, be it hybrid, be it in person. We have to do whatever it takes to educate our children. But I think it takes us working together and to know that as an educator, I'm going to do my very best. I'm going to do my very best to make sure that we meet the needs of our students. And that's what, part of our Civil Rights Commission. I mean, we're looking at how are we helping our Black and Brown communities? And we can be the voice for our Black and Brown communities to stand up and say, this is what our children need. Everyone won't be able to go virtually. Everyone can't learn virtually. That is a daunting task. So we just really have to think about how do we educate during this pandemic. And again, I said it takes all of us working together to figure out. Parents have to know what's best for them. And people are like, well, things are just so different. And I was like, yeah, but a parent has to choose what's best for them. I talked to a parent when I was in the store, and she said, I really don't want my child to go back to school, but I don't have a choice because I have to work. So therefore, my child has to go back to school. And so as an educator, I'm saying we need to make sure we have those safety precautions put in place to make sure everyone is safe when we're coming in those buildings. We have to be safe. We have to have everything that we need in order to teach. If it's the plexiglass, a lot of teachers, and I've seen elementary teachers have done some creative things to put in their classroom to make sure that they're social distancing their children, putting plexiglass up or making things, to put up so, you can continue to collaborate with your children, to pull your small groups, children to really interact. And then the virtual, I know some districts are having a different platform because we didn't have a platform in March. We didn't have a platform, but now school districts are having a platform that teachers will be trained on. This weekend, next week, we know that the date for the students to come is August the 24th. But so teachers will have at least 2 weeks to really be in that platform, to make sure if school opens, how long would it be open? And if we have to pivot to a virtual site, we'll already be prepared. We weren't prepared in March. That was a total shutdown at the last minute. Yeah. And so, we were struggling as educators. But I think right now we just have to make sure that we elevate our voices in our communities to make sure that we have what's right for our children. Make sure all of our children have what's right for them, be in whatever platform that parents choose for their students. That as educators, we have to be there. And that's what we're doing in the sorority. And we do have some virtual platforms that we can share with parents just to help them understand. Like you said, you didn't understand what your grandchildren were doing, where there are a lot of parents saying, I'm not the teacher, right? But a parent is a child's first teacher. A parent is a child's first teacher.
Yes.
But when it comes to the curriculum, no, you don't. So I just think we have to all work together, and we're here as a sorority to help parents navigate through different platforms and platforms that we see that they'll be able to navigate through. So I'm glad that we're here and we'll be able to share those platforms with you.
That is the perfect segue.
Yay! Exactly.
15 minutes or so for you all to give some tips, give some to the parents. Even, I don't know, I don't think any kids watch my show. If they do, but this is the perfect time for you to give some tips to the parents on things they can do to kind of prepare themselves for what's going to come, because there's going to be have to be more parent interaction and doing homework. So kind of give some tips on some things, and think that about 15 minutes about what parents can do to kind of get ready for the school year, and then how to kind of get through the school year without pulling out all of their hair, running wild through the house and screaming.
So one of the things that I wanted to bring up is we decided to turn around our particular programs that we do. We focus on, we have a YES program, Youth Education and Service. And what we decided to do when the pandemic hit was to really hone in on what parents needed, students needed, teachers needed. And in order to kind of survive this moment that we thought wasn't going to be as long as it has, and thank God that we actually had some really wonderful sorors that put their heads together to come up with two platforms that, because I know for a fact that first 3 weeks when we went online, all kinds of things were coming across social media. Here's a platform you can use. Here's a this that you can use. Here's a program you can use. Here's this. And it became very convoluted about how, if I was a parent, I would have been so overwhelmed about all the things that were coming across my social media or across anything, because there was not a one-stop shop. And so what we did was we enlisted our fabulous sorors to give us any and every platform that you thought you would need for whatever age group that you were going to either teach or come in contact with, whether you were grandmother, whether you were a parent, and whether you were actually a teacher. So the first one was our local chapter. Our local chapter put together a website, and I put it in the chat. It is www.nspdk SW for Southwest, GammaNew.org. What that is a one-stop platform for anything that is happening Arkansas related in education. And so there you can go to the Arkansas, you can find links to the Arkansas Department of Education and what they are advising in terms of education and curriculum. You can go to we have PBS, Scholastics, all of the top platforms that for elementary as well as college educational, Edutopia for higher ed, you name it, we have links. And all you have to do is go on there, click by grade level. And we have Khan Academy, you name it, we have put together a plethora of websites and platforms and teaching tools. Whether if you are a parent and you want to take a virtual field trip with your child, if you are a teacher and you want to add particular types of lecture processes for Nearpod or Edpuzzle, if you're looking for student engagement strategy types of platforms, assessment platforms, you want to do very engaging type of different project based, you can go to Flipgrid. You name it, we have it on that website. But it's also particular to Arkansas, so that then we have listings of where you can go get your meals in the morning. Which groups are given, what schools, because what we found was they started changing the routes or changing the schools. So at first they would have, for like 6 weeks or the first 3 weeks, they were steady. But then after that, every week they started changing where the school meals were being dropped off or where you could pick up. Also where mobile hotspots will be. Because right now we know we have a technology desert in Arkansas. And so with them partnering, with the governor partnering with Verizon coming in and everything, we will have maps, have a map, an interactive map on our site that shows where the mobile hotspots are. But then you have somebody like a Stacey McAdoo, who is also our soror, and she has put together a list of teaching tools that do not require technology. Except for the television. So PBS Learning and a schedule of PBS to use the television, use the NPR, use the radio as teaching tools for if you cannot access technology in terms of Wi-Fi and internet. There are other ways that you can use those things. So that is for our Arkansas. Then the national sorority actually has a website that talks about all of the what is it, the course requirements and that you would need by region.
Okay.
And how to the state standards, that's what it is. The state standards and the alignment of course curriculum around state standards by grade. And that website is www.nspdkacademy.org. What also is about to launch with that, so that also has from pre-K all the way to college, every kind of link, every kind of platform that is across the country, to the point where people around Canada and London have just contacted us and said, this site is amazing, and thank you for putting these platforms. And they are organized by student, by parent interest, and by teacher interest. So if you decide that you want to homeschool, there's a whole section on how to grab particular curricula for your student, for your kid.
Awesome.
That also will come webinars. So the SORAs around the country will also, so Dr. Allen teaches composition. So she is going to be doing a webinar on how to teach composition should you want to homeschool your child. China teaches Google Classroom. So should a teacher want to say, I want to make sure that I can integrate this within. So we will be doing webinars, interactive webinars that will teach teachers, parents, and particularly students about how to access and use these platforms.
That is awesome. And I posted those again, so you'll be able to see them if you're on YouTube watching this, and you'll be able to see them on Facebook if you look at the video. Those are awesome websites, and you all have been busy. Y'all have put together some great stuff for teachers and parents. And I kind of got a feeling that they are going to be so grateful for that, because again, we've all kind of been thrown into this brand new normal, or however we want to put it. And you have parents that have never had to homeschool before, and you have teachers that have never had to do a lot of virtual education. So you put together something that's going to actually satisfy us, whether we're at home or if we're in the classroom. You're going to help the teachers, you're going to help the parents, and most of all, it's going to help the kids get an education while we muddle our way through this pandemic thing. So this is going to be a great resource for a lot of parents and a lot of teachers, and we thank you all for doing it. That is awesome. Ladies, anybody else want to add any other resources they can think of, or something special that you may be doing, or if you are available to parents if they need to get in contact with you to get some more information?
Yes, I'd like to add, I have a virtual symposium on teaching in an online environment, and I put my email address out there. Anyone can have access to it. It's in a Google Classroom format. If you just shoot me an email, I will shoot you the classroom link so they can be a part.
I'm going to put those.
If there are any teachers that are interested in being a part of our Gamma Nu, our local chapter, please email us at nspdkgamanu@gmail.com. And we will certainly love to have you. We are always interested in a few good educators.
I'm so glad. I'm pretty sure they'll be getting in contact with y'all. Let's see. If you would, when you put those comments in, put them under comments, so that way it shows up in the stream.
And finally, I just want to say, we really need to be clear about why we exist in the state of Arkansas, and particularly around the country. As you begin to see Black Lives Matter and the protests and everything, we find that there's a need for cultural relevant materials and resources. And so our organization makes sure that we provide those. What does it look like to have Black books in the elementary stream? All of those different kinds of things that we really want to make sure that parents can see. Because if you remember, the pandemic was not the beginning of the unrest in Arkansas around education. We were already in the fight in Little Rock School District. And so what that did, so we're even still on the heels of that, where you know, they were in a state of unrest already. We were already talking about school board and the superintendent, all those different types of things. And then pandemic hits, and then George Floyd hits, and Black Lives Matter hits. And so you're talking about systemic trauma coming back to back to back for Black and brown children in the state of Arkansas, and even in rural Arkansas, in those that are not black and brown, but just the fact of the inequities within rural areas as well. And so we want to be able to say, look, we are a voice for those voices that are not being heard. Not that they don't have a voice, they're just not being heard. And they're not being recognized, and we're not going to talk about marginalized people, because there's no such thing as a person that is marginalized. We're talking about people that are being pushed to the margins by the inequities within the educational systems, and we plan to address those this year, particularly through webinars and our Teacher-Ramas. So thank you for having us.
Oh, no problem. I'm so glad that you all were able to come on and give such good information. And I'm pretty sure this is going to help a lot of people. Feel free whenever you all have a chance, when I share this with y'all, share it again so the people that missed it can see it. And the people in the back can hear it. So make sure that you share this again. I want to give each one of you all about a minute or so to just kind of give you closing remarks and any one tip that you can think of right off the top of your head that will be really helpful for parents this year. Go.
Communication is the key. Communication is the key, especially with your child's teacher. So that's one tip I would have, is to make sure that, you know, as educator, I have to communicate with you as well. But I think for communication is going to be the key to make sure that we're helping each other get through this pandemic and educating the child.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. One tip that I would have for college-bound parents. Make sure that you're a college student and you have a exit strategy. Everybody has a re-entry plan, but should an outbreak happen on your campus, what is your strategy? How are you going to go pick up your child? And that's very important for you to have those discussions with your college student before you send them off to college.
Yes.
I'm actually piggybacking off of Nedra, because my thing was, even if you are going back into the classroom, please familiarize yourself with the online information and know how to navigate that, because we are expecting a second surge in September. And there's a very large possibility that everyone has to go back home, whether we want to or not. So don't take it for granted that the kids are going to get to go back or something. So familiarize yourself with technology, come up with a plan B for if someone does have to be at home with the kids, right? We need to start looking at what that option might look like, because there's a very, very big possibility that schools will be closed down again.
Yes, ma'am. And I didn't think about that. And you're right. We are suspecting another surge in September. All right, Dr. Carter.
All I know is that education has been changed forever. There is no going back to what traditional education looks like. And we're moving from school being a noun to school being a verb. What does it mean to school someone? And so we really need to, and we can be at the forefront of making some great progress around this, because school has always been this place and not necessarily this education thing. And so now we get to focus really on not the place and the space, but what does it mean to school? And so
That is true. Well, ladies, thank you so much. I appreciate you. And once again, thank you, ladies of National Sorority of Phi Delta Kappa Inc., Gamma Nu Chapter.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I hope that, I'm pretty sure anybody listening will get some information that they can use. And I love the fact that you all gave them some good tips and gave good resources. Great discussion. I appreciate y'all. And Dr. Nedra, I forgot to say welcome back to you. I forgot.
Thank you.
But thank you.
I'll be back.
All y'all coming back.
Yes, and please look us up. Please feel free to reach out to us. We do have SORAs who are willing to teach. We have retired teachers that actually will be tutors who would love to tutor.
Okay.
And then if you have 9th through 12th grade girls and boys. We have a youth group that meets as well. There's a youth leadership development group. And then we have the KLTs, which are the future teachers.
All right.
Yes.
All right. If you can, just go ahead and put in the comments and some kind of contact information. So if somebody needs to reach you all, they can. Now, one more time, ladies, thank you so much. Wonderful, wonderful information. And I know that it's going to help somebody. And PK will know who I'm talking about.
Me?
Now, you're a PK too?
I am a PK.
Okay, one of you PKs give us a prayer. One of you PKs pray us into the school year and out of it safely.
Go ahead, Nedra.
Okay. Father, we just thank you, God, for what our eyes have seen, what our ears have heard this evening. And Lord, we just thank you for being with us and giving us the wisdom to share with your people, God. We ask that you will put your hedge of protection around our children as they begin to go back to school. Lord, put your hedge of protection around our educators, God, our administrators, our staff, God, everyone that comes in contact with these children. And Lord, be with the parents, God, as they are making hard decisions, God, right now. Lord, we ask that you will be with them, God, in those decisions, and that you will also bless them financially, God, because there's so many people that are struggling right now. But Lord, we know that we can look to you, God, because you are our source. And we say thank you. Amen.
Amen. All right, ladies. Thank you so much. Y'all have a good night. And thank all of you for sticking with us through the show. Can we do that? Can I look? Now, wait a minute. Can I do it?
Yeah.
You can do that.
I was just checking. I didn't know if that was one of y'all things.
Yeah.
Thank you all so much. I appreciate the love
Lovely.
of each and every one of you. And I will be calling you so we can come back later on in the year and talk again. So thank you all for tuning in tonight. And this is the end of the Ladies Lounge After Dark with Wonder Low. We will see you again next Tuesday right here, same place, same time, 7 p.m. for another great show. Thanks and see you next week.
Thank you.
All right, ladies. All right, I'm clicking off.